Today, we're going to travel back in time, way back, nearly 4,000 years to be exact, to ancient Babylon. But forget the Hanging Gardens for a minute. We're on the hunt for something else. A hidden world of markets, legal codes, and financial wisdom that feels shockingly modern. Let's dive in. Wealth is the fruit of steady habits, not perfect timing. I mean, that sounds like something you'd read on a finance blog today, right? But get this. That quote comes from a classic book from 1926 called The Richest Man in Babylon, which sets all of its lessons in the ancient world. And that's gotta make you wonder. The author, George Clason, he could have set his story anywhere, any time in history. So why Babylon? What was so special about that place? Was it just a cool, exotic setting for some simple fables about saving money? Or was there something real, something truly sophisticated about Babylon's economy that made it the perfect choice? Well, to figure that out, we've got to look at the evidence. To get to the bottom of this, you have to follow the money. And for a very long time, the expert view of ancient economies was, well, let's just say it was pretty basic. Yeah, the big idea for years was that these old economies were simple, maybe even primitive. Most of the action was controlled by the palace or the temple. Think taxes and royal commands, not supply and demand. Prices, people thought, were probably just fixed by the king. But then, an absolutely incredible discovery turned all of that on its head. Tucked away in what are called Babylonian astronomical diaries, these are clay tablets where scribes recorded the planets for centuries, were market prices. For 400 years, month after month, they wrote down the going rate for things like barley. So when economists got their hands on this data, they found something amazing. The prices weren't fixed at all. They bounced around unpredictably, just like prices in the stock market do today. It's a phenomenon called a random walk. Basically, it means you can't predict tomorrow's price just by looking at today's. And that is a classic sign of a real competitive market, not some top-down command economy. And this is where it gets really wild. Take a look. On the left, that's the price of barley in Babylon, thousands of years ago. On the right, that's the price of wheat in England, starting in the 1500s. The patterns are just shockingly similar. It shows that the same kinds of economic forces were at play then as they were 2 millennia later. And these markets were responding to real-world events. After Alexander the Great died, suddenly in 323 BCE, the whole region was thrown into chaos. And what happened to the price of barley? Whoosh, it shot up. This wasn't a king decided to raise prices. This was the market reacting to instability and probably a ton of silver flooding the economy to pay soldiers. So, okay, we've established that Babylon had a real working market economy. But that leads to an even bigger question. What kind of society do you need to have for a market like that to even work in the first place?
Well, for any market to work, you need rules, you need trust, you need a solid legal system. And boy, did Babylon have one. It was built on the legendary Code of Hammurabi.
Way before those price charts were even being recorded, this guy was laying the groundwork. Hammurabi. He wasn't just a warrior king. He was a brilliant administrator who knew that to hold an empire together, you needed one clear, comprehensive set of laws for everybody. And if you look at the prologue to his code, which was carved into this massive stone pillar, he says it himself. He says his goal was to prevent the strong from oppressing the weak. I mean, that's a pretty noble ambition for any legal system, then or now. And we're not talking about a handful of rules here. The code was unbelievably thorough. It covered everything: criminal law, family law, property, business contracts, professional standards, even agriculture. It was basically the entire operating system for Babylonian society. And the laws themselves were super specific, and often really harsh. Just listen to this one, Law 229. If a builder puts up a house and it collapses and kills the owner, the builder is put to death. They did not mess around. It's not just about punishment. It's about forcing accountability, a key ingredient for any complex economy. Now, the part of Hammurabi's code everyone remembers is that phrase, an eye for an eye. But as you can probably guess, the reality on the ground was a little more complicated. The official term for this idea is lex talionis. The punishment fits the crime. Literally, you take an eye, you lose an eye. Sounds simple, right? A kind of brutal but straightforward justice. But was it really that simple? Did the law actually treat a nobleman the same way it treated a commoner or even a slave? Not even close. The answer is a hard no. Justice in Babylon was stacked. Society was split into classes: the Awilim, who were the nobles, the Mushkinim, the commoners, and the Wardom, the slaves. And as you can see here, the punishment for the exact same crime changed completely depending on who you were. If a noble blinded another noble, yep, he lost an eye. But if that same noble blinded a commoner, he just had to pay a fine. Harm a slave, just pay the owner half the slave's value. So yeah, justice was anything but blind. Okay, so let's pull all these threads together. We've got a surprisingly modern market economy, and we have a deeply complex, if unequal, legal system. What does that tell us about what Babylon really left behind? The story is actually amazing when you lay it out. It starts with this little modern book about building wealth. And it turns out that story is set in a place that had a real data-proven market economy. And that economy could only exist because it was built on the foundation of an incredibly sophisticated legal code. And that brings us right back to the start. Why Babylon? Well, it turns out George Classen's choice wasn't just for show. He picked a civilization that wasn't just rich in legends, but was rich in complexity. A society where the very real ideas of commerce and law were already hard at work. And that's really the heart of it all. These ideas that feel so modern to us, market forces, legal accountability, the rules that shape our lives, they have roots that go deeper than we can imagine. They're truly ancient, written on clay tablets and carved into stone thousands of years ago. It really makes you wonder, doesn't it? What other modern ideas that we live by every day have ancient roots that we've just completely forgotten about?